Okay, so review Unit 1. So the big concept that we talked about with real numbers was the big category real numbers, okay? So real numbers was our big category. It broke down into two separate things, which was rational and irrational, okay? Once you go to irrational, you're just irrational. So if you stay over in rational, you can break into more subsets. So after rational, you can then move into integers. Integers are negative and positive whole numbers. Then you can go to just whole numbers, which is those positive numbers. And then our last is natural numbers, which is our counting numbers. Okay? So if you look at the diagram on number 1, it says the tree diagram represents the relationship between the sets and subsets of rational numbers. Which of the following groups of numbers could be placed in section B? Well, rational numbers is here. Okay? 0, 1, 2, 3 are all whole numbers. So what's going to go in between those two things is integers. So we need to find negative and positive whole numbers. Well, I clearly see that B is not it because it has a fraction. C is not it. And A, it has just negative and positive whole numbers. So A is your answer. Number 2. In which visual representation correctly describes the relationship between the sets and subsets? Okay, so that's talking about those concepts we just talked about. And if you look, rational and then counting is not the order. Whole integers counting works, but it has to be under the rational umbrella. So rational is not just whole and natural, it's also integers. So it only leaves answer choice D there. Okay, Number 3 talks about, it just came off that one that we just did on the decimal paper. Aaron went to the grocery store and purchased milk for $2.75, a box of cereal for $4.50, and bread for $3.25. She paid with the 20. How much change? Okay, so you would add those decimals together. You would add $2.75, $4.50, and $3.25 together. Once you get that, 13, 14, 15, you get $10.50 for your total. Now you have $20, so you subtract $10.50 from that $20, and some of y'all borrowed, and then y'all borrowed even over to this one, which you didn't need to go over to this one. 0 minus 0 is just 0. And then on some of the homework problems, I saw that where you borrowed all the way over to the far one. You don't need to do that. If it's 0 minus 0, you don't need to borrow that over. Okay, so our change is going to be $9.50. You would fill it out like so. Okay, number 4. Andrew has 6.5 cups of flour. The recipe for the cake he's making calls for 4 3/4 cups of flour. And he also needs 9 cups of flour for a cookie recipe. How much more? How much more means a subtraction problem. Well, Andrew needs to make the cake and cookies. Okay, so if he started with this, but he used this, okay, that will give us our first amount of what he has, right? I have to get a common denominator, but I'm going to change them to, we're going to do 4 times 4 and plus 3, which is 19 fourths. And then we're going to get a common denominator, which is fourths. Okay, so 19 fourths is going to stay the same, but we're going to scale this one up. So 13 times 2 is 26. 26 minus 19 is 7 fourths. Okay, now, but I'm not finished because I need 9 more cups. So that's when I say 7 fourths minus 9 whole cups. Because I'm in fractions, so I got to keep my numbers in fractions. Common denominator is going to be 4. So 7 fourths minus 36 fourths. Okay, I can't take 36 from 7, so we know that we leave change, different sign, subtract and keep the sign of the larger, which is going to be 29 fourths. Yes?
Yes.
You're looking at me like no. 29 fourths, so 4. So 4 goes into 29 7 times with 1/4 left over, which clearly is answer choice A. Okay. Lot of steps, integer rules, fractions, adding and subtracting fractions, common denominators, all that stuff that we reviewed. Okay, number 5, to complete a planner project, Mr. Watson will purchase cedar boards that are 2 inches wide and 10 feet long. He will need to cut the length of the boards into pieces that are 1 1/3 inches. How many pieces can Mr. Watson cut from a 10-foot long board so we can determine how much he will need? Okay, there's some extra information in here. People get caught up with this number right here. We don't need it, okay? We really need to know this that's 10 foot long, okay? And that we want to cut it up into 1 1/3 inches. So we have feet, well, we have feet and inches. We are dividing, but we've got to get a common. Does that make sense? I can't do inches and feet. I need to both be in feet or both be in inches. So I'm going to convert it to inches because I feel like that's easier. How much is 10 feet in inches? It's 10 times 12, right? Because there's 12 inches in every foot, so this is technically 120 inches. Are we good with that? So we're technically dividing 120 by 1 1/3 inch. Because we're going to see how many little boards will do that. So that's my problem. So 120 over 1 divided by 4/3. And then we're going to keep, change, flip. I'm going to simplify for everybody's needs. Okay, I'm going to say this is divisible by 4 and this is, so it's 30. And that makes it a little bit more simpler. 30 times 3 is 90 over 1. And then the answer is 90. Okay?
Really? You can think about it and think logically and say that...
No, it's going to make 90. It's going to make 90 little boards.
And say that even 120 times 1 wouldn't be able to...
Okay, so number 6. Maggie discovered an error in her checkbook register and recalculated her balance, determining that she was overdrawn. Her balance in her checking account is this. Okay, Maggie had saved 2 of her paychecks. Those paychecks. Okay, in the amount of $178.30. For a special occasion, if Maggie deposited both checks in her checking account, what would be Maggie's balance? A deposit is an addition. A withdrawal or a check or some kind of debit, that's a subtraction happening, okay? So if she's negative this, what we're really doing is adding to 178.30s. So I'm going to multiply 178.30 times 2. Why am I doing that? There's 2. You need to pay attention to that. Okay, number 1 reason people got this question wrong last year, okay, because they didn't do 2 paychecks. They just skipped over and saw what they wanted to see, okay. So if I go through and multiply that, and here's for the people watching this, okay, for those people watching this at home, guys, if I move too fast in the video, pause the video, do what you think, and then catch up. Because if I'm writing too fast, that's the good thing. That's the beauty of the videos, is to be able to stop and say, okay, this is where I need to stop, and this is where I need to go. Okay, so what's happening here, we're going to add this number to our number over here. Well, I have a negative and a positive number. So when I have a negative and a positive, I've got to subtract and keep the sign of the larger. So I'm going to subtract here, where I know it says plus, but I'm going to actually... subtract, and then I'm going to get $78.66, but my answer is going to be negative because it is still negative. So they're not even putting enough money in there. So you would fill in, this is a bubble thing. Look at how you're filling in the negative side. You're doing 7, 8, your decimal goes in that spot, and then 6, 6. Okay, so make sure you fill in the negative side. Number 7, the temperature on Monday was 15 degrees. It dropped 20 degrees overnight. What was the temperature Tuesday morning? Okay, yes, 15 minus 20 is negative 5. Okay, and then number 8. Kason is making a jelly bean bags for a party. Each bag contains 5/8 of a pound. If Kason has purchased 1,000 pounds of jelly beans, how many party bags can Kason make? Okay, how many can he make? Like, if we're dividing here, we need to be able to read that and decide, oh, it's dividing. So you're dividing 1,000 by 5/8. So 1,000 over 1. Keep, change, flip. Can I simplify? Yes. And I want to. 200 times 8 is 1,600. 1 times 1 is 1. There we are at 1,600 bags. Okay, I know I'm going quick, but I'm trying to make it all in one video. 9, Jane is selling picture frames and wants to compare the areas of the frames. One of the frames measures 1.5 foot wide and 4.8 feet long. What is the area? Okay, I would draw my picture. I would label. Okay, this is in fractions, this is in decimals. Whichever way you want to go. Most of you are going to want to go to decimals. What's 1/2 as a decimal? It's 0.5. And then 4.8 feet. We're looking for the area. So how do you find area? Length times width. So 4.8 times 0.5. Okay, so, oh, and then 1, 2, it's 2.4. And then we have our answer choice, D. Last question. Sean has $319.18 in his checking account until the end of the month. Sean writes a check for $459.42. How much does Sean have now in his checking account? I'm going to tell you right now, you should know that he's negative. Because he started out with $300-something and he spent $450, he's negative, and he had to pay an overdraw fee. But we're going to subtract the two numbers. Okay, 459. Why am I subtracting them?
So you know the difference and you'll know that it's negative.
Yeah, we know, because we know it's a difference. We know it's negative. So I can mark out those two answers right there. 140.24. Okay, this is the end of the video, so make sure if you have any questions, you come and ask me. Thank you so much.